이번 대지는 조금 많이 어렵게 걸린 것 같아요.
대지는 저희가 락스 아니면 SKT 둘 중에 한 팀이었는데 둘 다 워낙 강한 팀이라 누가 걸려도 별로 상관은 없었고,
저희가 더 센 상대로 더 열심히 준비를 해서 이긴다면은 정말 결승까지 직행을 할 수 있을 것 같아요.
Gorilla's looking for more. It's a scary flash double knocker equalizer. G2 are down.
전에 저희가 8강에서 떨어졌기 때문에 이번에는 적어도 4강 이상은 가야 될 것 같아요.
EDG doesn't have to choose. Everyone is killable at this point. Pawn is like an anime hero. He sits on the bench, he recovers from injury, and just when they need him after everyone is dead, he comes in and saves EDG season. Superhuman performance from Pawn.
Doubt is just wrecking through the team, and that's a double kill. Scout will pick up the quadra. Threads the needle, goes back in. Peter looking for the steal. He does it one more time.
Clearlove's up 50-50 with Baron at 2700 HP. He goes in, Clearlove steals the Baron.
And the Rocks Tigers show up and finish number one in Group A.
Hello, hello. Today, the Windy City hosts a battle between the first place teams from Korea and China. The LCK and LPL champions are here, supported by thousands of screaming League of Legends fans in this historic Chicago theater. EDG fans out in force. Rocks Tiger, though, they've got plenty of support here in the building. And let me tell you, these people have been loud for a while now, not just as we start the show. Now you're seeing Edward Gaming here. They're arriving at the arena just moments ago. They'll be facing a formidable Rocks Tigers. For many, the tournament favorites coming in and a tough opponent here in the quarterfinals. Hello everyone, I'm James Dash Patterson, joined tonight by a panel of experts, Alberto Crumbs Rangifo, Jake Spawn Tiberi, and Martin DeFicio. Looking, gentlemen, day 3, and I've got you all on my desk, my dynamic trio, if I will.
Yeah, experts is a very strong word, but we are here as good friends. And Jake and I, we got to cast yesterday with SKT, and it was a great series, honestly.
As someone that got to watch it from the stand, you guys did a good job, but the crowd was so loud and so excited for the games that I really enjoyed it.
And we've had 3 on the first day, 4 on the second day. We're hoping for 5 games here tonight. But now, it is time to pass it down to the stage to introduce tonight's quarterfinal contenders.
Hello to everyone around the world, and especially to everybody in the Chicago theater. Please put your hands together and welcome today's quarterfinalists. Starting with the #1 seed from the LPL, it's Edward Gaming! Starting in the top lane, Koro1! In the jungle, Clearlove! Starting mid laner, Scout! AD carry, Deft! Support, Mako! Superstar substitute, Pawn! And their coach, Rapid Star! Put your hands together for Edward Gaming! Their opponents on the Rift today, the reigning champions of LCK, the current kings of Korea, Rocks Tigers! Top lane, Smeb! Jungle Peanuts! Mid lane, Koro. AD carry, Prey. Support, Gorilla. Substitute, Cry. And their coach, Nofei. Chicago, one more time for EDG versus Rocks.
Two of our tournament favorites coming into Worlds this year. Sadly, one of them will be departing tonight and one moving on to face SK Telecom of all teams. But I mean, exactly what we have to talk about. The storyline of these teams, that they were such tournament favorites and high expectations coming in.
And I don't know that you have to be sad that you get it in the quarterfinal, because at least we get it at some point in this tournament. So many people were excited to see these two late-game team-fighting powerhouses square off against each other on Summoner's Rift, and now we get to see it today.
All right, well, let's load up the quarterfinal bracket and take the pulse of the tournament so far. Samsung Galaxy and SK Telecom T1 have secured their place on the Madison Square Garden marquee and will do battle in the semifinals next week. SKT will be joined by the winner of today's matchup between Rocks and EDG. Now, SKT clinched their spot after 4 games yesterday, looking like a strong contender for next week's semifinal.
Yeah, and it was honestly a super fun series to watch, especially if you're a fan of SKT, because they got to show not only great like team play, but also individual play. Like we have FLICKR, we always talk about him, and then down the bot lane, Bang. And, of course, Wolf just had a fantastic series overall. Definitely my 2 MVPs. And they actually outplayed Uzi and Mata.
And that's the crazy thing. We talk about the discipline, the strong team play, how good they are macro. And then RNG throw this gauntlet at the SK Telecom bottom lane, and they come up stronger as individual players, and Uzi and Mata really got to take your hat off to those
And that
two.
strong individual play just transitions into the really crisp macro play that we always compliment them on. And the way that it shows is that they always make smarter plays and less mistakes. And that's why the plays that they make are always netting more gold. They go for the highest reward possible on the map, and that allows them to snowball really well. And that's what lets them claw back into those games, because they know what play they need to make sure that they stay relevant.
And you know, SKT, they keep doing it to us, but a rough group stage now heading into the final portion, and they look so damn good, so damn coordinated. And you have to think that if anyone comes up against this lineup, they are going to be very hard to take down.
Have to be a little bit careful. You know, we don't want to give them the title just yet. They haven't actually faced any of the other Korean teams, who obviously have shown they can beat them back in Korea as well. Could be Rocks Tigers, could be Samsung in a potential final. I think SKT look fantastic, but they haven't won the title yet.
Well, today we'll find out if the Rocks Tigers join the other Korean squads in the next round, or if EDG can carry the banner of China to the semifinals. Now, each of these teams had huge expectations coming into Worlds, and both, well, let's be honest, they had less than stellar performances in groups.
Yeah, and you have to take an even closer look at EDG, because now they're playing with an emergency sub. Unfortunately, Mouse, due to personal issues, is back in China, and they've brought in Koro. And people have great memories of this guy, but he hasn't played since Spring Finals, where they lost against RNG, which was a huge upset. He's a big team fighter. He plays a lot of Gnar, Trundle, Poppy, the like that Mouse also played up in the top lane, but this is going to be an uphill battle, because they chose to play with Mouse over Koro this split.
No doubt having an emergency sub is an added challenge for EDG, but we have seen glimpses of success for them in this tournament.
Yeah, I mean, with EDG, we've seen some good games and some really bad games, but I think actually it all falls back to the drafting. Like, historically, we've seen them adapt well in drafts over, like, a best-of-5, but in best-of-1s, in group stage, a lot of times they would draft, like, these competitions where only one lane could really win, and if those guys didn't step up and actually played well, the team would just fall apart early on, and that is something where we got to look at the coach, but I do think they have the infrastructure to actually adapt in a best-of-5 series and bring up some better drafts.
And the drafting just makes the job of a jungler that much harder, and we can kind of credit that to Clearlove's underperforming. We had this guy as one of the top 20 junglers in the world coming into it. Unfortunately, not the best games for him in the group stages. I do believe, however, but as you mentioned, that this team is a best-of-5 team, that they can bounce back with a solid draft, with lanes that allow them to push up and make Clearlove just have free roam on the map.
Yeah, and we'll see whether he can do it, because you have to remember that Clearlove played 83% of his games on Rek'Sai Gragas this split, and having Gragas gutted and Rek'Sai be heavily contested and banned away from him a lot actually put them in a severe disadvantage in the group stage.
Yeah, and also we got to look at the fact they had, like, trouble. If you look at like top lane performance was an issue, so he couldn't really go top lane and rely on that one. Bot lane was the one he had to play around, but that's very predictable, so teams would kind of counter against it and ward against it. So it's very hard for Clearlove to like find a lane he could snowball properly, and that again made him look even worse. He just kind of pulled across the entire map. They need to fix that for today. He needs to find the right lane to go for.
And now we've talked about the emergency sub situation for the team, but we haven't talked about the standard sub situation for the team. We've got Pawn, we've got Scout. Scout will be starting today, but this is something that they have employed throughout their season.
And let's talk about why Scout is starting, because Pawn started Worlds and they said they didn't want to carry 2 rookies in. Now with Koro back in the starting lineup, a lot of experience, they feel confident starting Scout, and he was a better mid laner throughout the entire split. They rested Pawn and he showed up at Worlds, but Scout was the go-to man during the LPL summer.
And of course, there is an opportunity for them to sub him in at any point through this series after the first game. Now, on the opposite side of the rift, we have the ROX Tigers, who also showed some weakness in groups, despite being the #1 seed from LCK.
Yeah, and once again, I feel like we're also looking at draft when we look at the ROX Tigers. We expect a lot from them. When we saw the group draw, it was like, wow, okay, that's an easy group. That's a 6-0 most likely for the ROX Tigers. But drafting-wise, they've been disrespectful, honestly. They gave Aurelion Sol over to CLG. You don't do that, first of all. And then second of all, you don't draft losing lanes across the board, because then again, in this meta, you just fall too far behind. And that has been a big issue for them.
Although, to be fair, I felt like in the last 2 games in their group stages, they buckled down and said, we're going to pick our comfort picks. We saw Victor for Kuro. We saw 2 games back-to-back for Ina on the Elise, and he just went off. Not only able to provide enough pressure for the early game, but just having such a massive contribution in terms of damage, on top of like 1 million Baron steals that he had to just keep his dreams and pretty much crush everybody else's.
Yeah, exactly right. But what all this did for the ROX Tigers is turn around what was a poor group stage early game, because this team time and time again were falling into holes against the likes of Albus, Nox, which you just would not expect during the LCK regular season. And if you give EDG that get out of jail free card, let them get to the late game, that's where they can punish you.
Yeah, I mean, if we want to look at a positive for the ROX Tigers in group stage, it was late game team fighting. Yes, EDG are also late game monsters, but the Tigers, even being down like 5-6k gold, they would even win late game fights. They almost came back in some of the games they lost, and actually came back in other games. Think of the G2-1 with the Baron steal into now a 1 team fight due to Smeb. So because they have Smeb, who's a fantastic team fighter, and the team understands how to play around him, late game, they can still win games for sure.
But I do feel that there is similarities between these teams, and people are looking at it one-sided due to recency bias. I mean, EDG had peaks and troughs throughout the whole of the group stages, and they're coming in as heavy underdogs. Maybe the first time that this team has ever come into a best-of-5 heavy underdogs, whereas ROX, they were struggling and then closed out incredibly well.
Yeah, and I also want to be clear that the reason why we can be so critical of both of these teams right now is because of the expectations. It's because of what they put up in their seasons back in their home regions. They were such dominant teams that the expectation is for them to live up to that level.
Yep.
And if they do get to that level, my goodness, we're in for a really fantastic
Yeah,
series.
and I want to jump off your point about ROX being fantastic in the late game team fight. ADG is the same thing. These guys are monsters at team fighting. You know, the substitute from Koro, he's known as a team fighter, and Pawn and Scout, they're able to do really well. But in particularly for me, Clearlove, everybody that jungles looks up to him and how to play the team fights properly. I think that if he can't find the ganks, that's fine. You know that he's going to be able to deliver in the team fights, especially in the best-of-5.
Now, the one matchup that we haven't touched on, and we need to because it's arguably the closest matchup in this series, is the battle in the bot lane between Prey and Deft.
And Prey is a guy that I've been looking at and admiring the whole of the summer split, then coming into Worlds. Spell weaving, AD carries are back in, and that means Prey, with all the utility as well as the Ezreal, is really shining. And I think this guy is one of the most undersung heroes because his laning phase is good and his team fighting is like nothing short of brilliant.
Yeah, really nothing bad to say about Prey, and really nothing bad to say about Deft either on the other side. I feel like he is the main carry. If you look at EDG, he's the guy you want to feed on EDG as well, because when it comes to both laning phase and team fighting, he's almost perfect in that regard. Give him a good matchup, he will win that lane. Give him some good protection in team fights, he will carry that team fight as well. So I'm actually looking at Deft being like the big guy to win this for EDG, but he needs the team around him.
And both of them actually have hyper carries up their back pocket. I mean, when you look at Prey, famous for his Twitch. When you look at Deft, the Jinx and Twitch come out as well. So I really do think that they're much more versatile than people actually think coming in with their champion pool.
All right, well, let's lock in your predictions before the casters take over down the line. Who's booking our third trip to New York City? Crum, starting with you.
Well, I mean, if we look at the week 2 performances for both of these teams, I do feel like ROX is on an upswing and EDG was on a downswing. I feel like ROX is coming in as a stronger team, and I think that they're going to be able to take it 3-1.
All right, 3-1 vote here for ROX. Spawn. What do you got?
I have a small fire still burning in my heart for EDG in saying that I am afraid it's about to be snuffed out. I think that Rox will take this. In saying that, I think that this is the closest quarterfinal that we will see all weekend.
Alrighty, and Officio.
Yeah, I think Rox Tigers will take it as well, 3-1. I think they just have more options in the pick and ban phase, more flexibility because they can actually play around Smeb as a big carry, which is going to be huge for them, and they can kind of match EDG along the way. So I think the pick and ban phase that I value very highly goes in favor of Rox, and that's why they're going to win.
Well, 3 votes for Rox Tigers here on the desk. My vote is for 5 games, no matter who takes it. Now, throughout the tournament, we're bringing you an alternate take on Worlds 2016 over on Riot Games 2. Click on over to the player experience stream where our team of casters are joined today by Matt and Kiwi Kid for a closer look at the top lane here in Game 1. SKT and their coach Koma are looking on with great interest at the outcome of this quarterfinal.
제가 기계도 아니고 적으로 만나지 않으면 굉장히 응원하고 있습니다. 저희 팀 다 거쳐간 선수들 예찬이뿐만 아니라 모든 선수들 경기 다 보면서 응원하고 있고요. 근데 적으로 만나면 그냥 말 그대로 적이죠. 죽여야 됩니다. 이겨야 돼요.
Well, hello and welcome to the Player Experience stream. I'm Max Atlas Anderson, casting today with a team of handsome fellas. Right now I'm joined by Zyrene and Mark Z. Of course, that is subjective. How are you doing, gentlemen?
I'm doing pretty good. How are you?
Yeah, super good, super good. How about you, Zyrene?
I'm doing great.
Ready to cast an amazing series?
Oh, absolutely. Coma, that was actually, they have to die. That's a little extreme.
A little extreme. Anyways, throughout the day, we'll bring you looks at alternate matchups unfolding throughout Chicago between Rox Tigers and Edward Gaming.
And we're joined by special guests Matt and Kiwi Kid to bring you individual matchup casts along with single team focused looks at the game through the eyes of players on stage with the fog of war enabled for one side. We'll start the day off in the top lane, and while you're getting a look at what we've got planned, keep in mind we're willing to switch up the focus to bring you the best gameplay and most compelling matchups as the series unfolds. So make sure you hop on Twitter, let us know exactly what you want. And let's open this up on the top lane. First, we should begin with a little context. EDG's top laner Mouse has returned to China to address a family emergency.
Yeah, Edward Gaming will be starting Koro1 in the top lane in place of Mouse as an emergency sub. So Koro1, not unfamiliar with the roster, was on it back in 2015, won MSI with this squad, but of course had, I believe, some wrist injuries that he was recovering from, and that's why he started falling out of the roster. And we saw him last Worlds, I believe was his last international appearance. So it's been a year since we've seen him.
And that was subbing in for Amazing J as well and didn't actually play all that much there at Worlds, and it was a disappointing result for EDG in the end anyway.
Yeah, I mean, the one thing that's nice about Koro1 coming back in is he was never like a huge carry player. He was on his best on tanks, and there's enough tanks in the meta right now that hopefully they can get him on one, and he just like survives the laning phase and can contribute to the team through team play as opposed to being counted on to carry.
Yeah, I actually have a kind of a, like he's the captain, right? Like he was previously the captain. What's it like bringing back your old captain to the squad? Is he still in touch with the game? Is he still in touch with professional play? Is he still going to be that type of voice, or does he want to have that voice as a personality? So I don't know what that's going to do for them. Is it going to be a positive or a negative?
And Mark Z, with coaching experience, like, have you switched out a captain before?
Never a captain. When I was coaching, it was always Dominate, and he was a pretty critical part of the team in terms of communication and energy level. So we never subbed him out, but we did sub out players before, and honestly, sometimes it's a breath of fresh air. Maybe not in this situation because you're not struggling, but whenever you're struggling and you get a new player in, it just revitalizes everyone. Everyone wants to try their best, figure out how this new roster is going to work exactly. And that's not the same setting that they're in now where they're on the world stage and you want to be hitting that groove already. So the substitute even is not going to be a good thing.
Yeah, and
he's up against Smeb as well, which is the ridiculous part.
It's not just added pressure of him being up against Smeb, which is like considered the best top laner in the world currently. Smeb hasn't been completely performing like that, though. His stats are quite average.
Apart from this, which was pretty good.
He's had some great plays, and the team fighting of Rox has actually been on point. Their mid-game has been good, but their early game has actually been atrocious, except for their last 2 games, I believe. But they had Elise in both of those games for Peanut to start getting the ball rolling.
And what it's felt like to me is that Rox play a certain style, they fall behind, and then it's up to Smeb to carry them out of these holes that they seem to fall into. And he's so good that often he can just do that. They don't lose very often, but they do seem to fall dangerously behind.
Right, but it's scary to count on your top laner to always make some kind of crazy play in the mid-late game to swing the game back in your favor. It's definitely not what they should be looking for as they go further into the tournament, because teams will not be giving them that opportunity to do so. We kind of talked about Group A being a little bit on the weaker side, looking at that bracket, or that group heading into the tournament, and I think they benefited from some of the teams not being able to close out games cleanly.
Yeah, well, it's a risky strategy, Cotton. We'll see whether it pays off for them. As Smeb now looking at the first pick, we've got Rek'Sai, Poppy, and Syndra banned away from EDG on the side of Rox, and Elise, Nidalee, and Jin were taken away by the #1 seed from China. And that's going to be the first pick, Caitlyn, followed up by quite a few options here from EDG.
Yeah, basically the Caitlyn will free up whatever you want on the rest of the map because it's a winning lane, no matter what you really pick against it. There's a lot of range support still left up, so you expect the Caitlyn lane to be a dominant lane, and that means you can pick a losing top laner that scales, you can pick a mid laner that scales, get even like a Vladimir in there or something, and know that you still have a pressure point on the map.
Right, I think it's a good idea to attack Deft, basically, is what this is doing, because he was kind of the shining star for them a lot of the times. He had by far like the highest damage contribution per gold share. There's a stat about that, and the fact that Deft is so important to EDG, being able to get the pressure away from him with the Caitlyn pick is pretty important, and there's a lot of stuff still up.
Oh my goodness, and once again, the Zyra is going to be locked away with the Lee Sin there for Peanut. I love the Poppy ban, with how incredibly detrimental she is to being Lee Sin just in general. So making sure they lock that one away safely.
Well, she's also a crutch for top laners that, you know, just have to survive and like
we
make
were talking
plays,
about
right?
Koro1 being a tank, and the ideal pick for him
His
probably
Gnar's
would have
still
been
up, mate. It's fine. Don't worry.
Oh yeah. Okay. I'm sure his Gnar will crush Smeb.
Well, that's the thing, right? And it was, what, only 18 months ago that we last saw it, and he only lost one game in that season, I'll have you know, Mark Z.
Yep. But, so, despite like whatever he gets in the top lane, maybe it's the Gnar, but they are saving last pick for him is what it looks like here. Seeing that the bottom lane is completely revealed and that you already picked the Ryze as a priority pick, EDG will try to set Koro up with some type of pick to counter. But Rox's bottom lane is just absolutely devastating. This is probably the strongest bottom lane right now, in my opinion. Maybe Karma can be subbed in for the Zyra, but Zyra has just been something that all 3 Korean teams have brought out, and they've actually been seeing a lot of success with it.
Right, and EDG's bot lane is basically going to try and just hang on to the lane phase, be queuing from far away with both Karma and Ezreal, and I don't think they can realistically hope to trade without, you know, a gank really coming in. And this is what I was surprised to see, the Aurelion Sol being left open.
And the Jace at the same time. We saw Jace being such a huge impact champion yesterday.
Right, and I mean, if you're looking to bully top lane because you think Koro1 might be a point of weakness, banning that Poppy, taking that Jace away, gives them a lot of bully potential. And with the Aurelion Sol, they can coordinate roams up to that side of the map or the bot side because they have so much pressure. I'm really liking Rox's draft so far.
Yeah, I really like it as well. It has enough disengages to make sure that you can fall into a poke siege pattern with this composition once you group up as 5. But that Aurelion Sol is something that hasn't been banned out too much, and it's quite surprising. But right now, it's kind of, does the guy play it? Does he play it well? Because it takes about 20+ games to actually understand how to play that character correctly.
Right, I think it's the kind of thing where mechanically very easy to play, but it's hard to get your mind into the right mindset to play it, because we saw yesterday when it was taken by
Xiaohu,
Xiaohu, he just started 1v1ing FLICKR a bunch once he got a couple of roaming kills, and it's like, no, dude, you got to keep roaming, and you can't settle into this fighting mid pattern. And having that kind of mindset is something that not everyone has. He is a great example of that. He's never been a mid fighting-centric player, so Aurelion Sol's perfect for him. Kuro's the same way.
Yeah, and I think another great thing about these types of champions is that when it takes like 20+ games, like very easy to pick up, hard to master, but the mastery curve is so rewarding, and there's no other champion that you can really play that helps you play that champion. It's kind of awkward to say, but like Rumble, for the longest time, had the largest mastery curve where you suck with him when you start, but then you gain like 20% in terms of your wins because of the fact that no other champion teaches you how to play Rumble. He silences himself, he's mid-range mage, he's like charging at people and stuff like that, so you have to play that
Flame
champion.
Spitter tilts you, which is incredibly frustrating.
You can ruin your last hitting, you deny yourself.
Yeah, and Aurelion Sol is quite the same. Like, there's no other champion in the game that's really similar to him, so you don't come into Aurelion Sol like, I understand how this guy works in my distances and stuff. So you have to play it to know it, and there's only a finite amount of time when you're practicing that and Ryze and like all these other hard-to-pick-up champions.
Yeah, it's a very good point. And throughout the day, you can reach out on Twitter using the hashtag AskTheCasters. Make sure you do. Any sort of questions about hard-to-master champions, we would definitely like to know. We'll do our best to give you some awesome answers live during the series. Awesome average ones, depends on the question, to be perfectly frank. But here we are, onto the game.
You get a bad answer, you ask a bad question. Is that what you're saying?
No, I'm just trying to give you guys some wiggle room here.
Thanks.
Rox are about to take on EDG for game number Koro1. Rock's getting pretty terrifying draft, to be perfectly frank. We'll see whether EDG can weather the storm. We'll be focusing towards the top side of the map with Smeb taking on Koro. And Koro, Rumble was, you know, it was always a champion in his wheelhouse, but it's just been a long time.
Yeah, and Jace definitely has the advantage in this matchup, so it's going to be pretty hard for Koro1 to hang on here. I mean, I'm really nervous for him because he is in this kind of carry position. Rumble is one of the nicer ones to play in the sense where you can kind of be this defensive alt bot. If you start getting in trouble due to pressure, just alt the wave and recall. You have those kinds of options available to you, but it's definitely still a skill matchup or a carry matchup. So carry versus carry, once you start falling behind, it really gets ugly quick.
Yeah, and Smeb with a lot of control here towards the top side of the map. And now that the players are fanning out across the map, I am going to look to Twitter to grab our first question of the day. And Martin Brown comes in with the poignant one, asking, do you think Rocks are going to target the top lane after EDG had to change?
Yes, I expect it, especially given the way this draft happened. They banned the Poppy away to get rid of his crutch. They take the Jace, which is the most dominant laner available on the patch, and then they have Aurelion Sol and Lee Sin, who are a great tag team for just snowballing a side lane. And we see that Rox has chosen to go with 2 winning side lanes. So they don't need to go top, but they have such good tools to do so.
Yeah, I actually think that they will most likely go towards the top side of the map, considering that your bottom lane is going to be winning so hard by themselves. But like you said, it is the option to go towards that bottom side, bring Koro down, do whatever it takes, because they'll be underneath turret most likely on EDG's side due to the shoving power of the Caitlyn and the Zyra combined. So it's a very viable option to go top.
Well, thankfully, we are the top lane focus stream, so we'll see whether they are going to head up here. This Koro's just trying to trade as well as he can. Smeb just throwing in cheeky auto attacks, seeing whether he can frustrate the veteran of the top lane for EDG. And of course, Koro has stayed with the organization for this entire time. He was actually an advocate for the team, just doing promotional work, things like that. So has never left EDG. See whether he's going to continue.
He's got that loyalty to the org.
Exactly, that's what it's about. Is right now he's going extraordinarily low.
Yeah, he tried to push in the first 2 waves to get an advantage. And
I think he's kind of screwed.
Yeah, he couldn't get it into turret, so he's in a really, really bad spot right now where he's going to start losing trades, as we already saw, and the wave never hit the turret and bounced back to him, so Smeb is basically in control to keep freezing it here if he wants to, and then you can start setting up ganks or just denial on CS.
There we are. Minion died, so we managed to get some key harass onto Smeb here. Nailed it.
Interesting thing that's been going on with the junglers as well as ClearLove. His red camp got warded by Kuro, level 1. Ward just died there, so now EDG know that they have been spotted on that side. But also, Rocks know that the path that Olaf took is actually putting him on the top side of the map, so Smeb does have to play a little bit more careful here. He'll probably place his ward down very shortly and try to get some vision to make sure he's not ganked.
Yep, Olaf being one of the few junglers who can start in the bot side pretty easily, and I think that might be a conscious decision by EDG to get ClearLove up to the top side early and start helping to stabilize any potential mismatch in the top side.
Yeah, you can see, thankfully, Koro has been able to equalize this lane. It is going to be pushing back towards him now. As you can see, pings going down in the mid lane. ClearLove is otherwise occupied, and Koro is going to have to keep holding on up here towards the top.
Yeah, Smeb warded and made sure that the Olaf wasn't coming top, and it did look like ClearLove started to visit mid because Koro traded very heavily with Scout to the point that Scout ran out of mana and Kuro almost ran out of health. It's very close.
Yeah, that's the nice thing about Aurelion Sol is you can basically trade however you want as long as you're not risking getting all in, and then you have the recall timing because you'll usually push the wave during the trade, and then you have your E to get back into the lane very quickly. So usually pretty safe to do so as the Aurelion Sol, but luckily Rise gets his tier off his first back, so he's in the all right spot as well.
Yeah, importantly for EDG, they did manage to get the Rift Scuttler, so they do have some vision at least moving up that river, meaning that Koro would have to use a different route in order to get up there if he was going to gank the Rumble.
Yeah, they actually saw him go towards the left, so they don't know if he's flying like up across the Baron pit right now towards Koro, and that's why he's been playing a little bit more defensive, but the timing's already gone. So basically when you see the Aurelion Sol leave the map, you go like, all right, let's count 10 seconds. If he's not here, then I'm probably fine.
Yeah, and we see Peanut start coming into lane to potentially look for a lane gank, but I think Smeb is just saying, I'll push it in and recall. I think that's all they're looking to do here.
Yeah, they also saw ClearLove on the bottom side of the map, so Peanut knows that it wouldn't be something that got countered, but he's also like, ClearLove's level 5, I'm falling behind, I gotta get back on my camps, I gotta back, buy my items, start heading towards that bottom side, because if he ganks top and he doesn't get anything, ClearLove would probably get level 6 really quickly, and it's also the Drake is something that could be highly contested, especially since like the bottom lane hasn't been doing as well as you would think.
And we see that Smeb's going to get a really nice recall off here. He's shoved in this wave. Koro's going to have to stay to clear it, and then Smeb's going to... Oh, it looks like Smeb's staying as well, not actually backing off. Maybe faking a recall so that when Koro1 comes forward, he can get an all-in on him.
Yeah, this is actually really good.
Oh my goodness. Good ward
good
from
ward.
Koro.
Yep.
Mouse wouldn't have done that.
You have a little bit of fanboy in you for the Koro1?
I've always been a big Koro1 fan. His team fighting and teleport usage have always been very, very good. However, his lane phase was the first thing to go, unfortunately.
It's always the first thing to go, to be honest.
Yeah, it was a big joke in the Team Liquid house back when I was still working there. Peter Zhang was a big fan of Koro1 as well, and he loved the way he played Maokai. Just sit back in lane, throw those saplings out, farm with them, just hang out till mid-late game, then CC some people.
And Quas like that?
Not all the time.
Yeah.
Well,
never got to play Swain until later.
Is that exactly what Koro is expected to do here as well, is just survive in this lane?
Yeah.
And then, you know, he should still get to those mid-game spikes?
Yeah, I mean, you see him going arm guard first. He's obviously not going for any kind of offensive build. He's not going for the pen. He just wants to survive the lane phase. You see him blowing his ult to get an okay recall off. And he's just hoping to hang on here as best he can. And Rumble is not a tank in the sense that you need to hang on, or like you're always going to be useful, but he is still a very good champion for that because your ult is good for doing damage. It's not the same as being like, oh, I have a CC available all the time as a Poppy or a Maokai or a Nautilus or something. But as far as carries go, Rumble's the closest to fulfilling that role.
Well, you can see he's actually decided to take the Krug camp on his way towards the top side of the map. So Koro, yeah, this is most certainly a concede situation.
Yep. Here comes Peanut, though, towards the top side. Smeb TP'd so he could get a good position on the lane.
Ooh, really yeah, Peanut is actually looking for it. Finds the kick, easy Q, and Koro is going to be taken down for first blood.
Oh
Difficult to avoid that one.
Yep.
But on the bottom side of the map, even more action. As now you can see EDG were looking for a kill. Ooh. That's the double for Scout.
But they're really
But Aurelion Soul's about to come down, and if Koro can turn it around, yeah, this is actually like this.
Oh god, he got exhausted.
Can he though?
If he can actually hit all of them.
Oh! Death! One more! Oh, misses the Q!
Oh. Yeah, that was like Aurelion Soul,
no.
like, give me the triple kill. Wait, how does Karma still have exhaust? It's like, guys, please.
Just to recap that gank in the top side is really decisive because they knew that Koro's ult was still down, so they had no fear of getting turned 1v2, which is always kind of the scary thing when you go to gank the Rumble, and it was just so free because...
Oh no, Koro.
Well,
there's a repeat gank coming up from Peanut as well. He's going to die
That's what
here
I'm talking
probably.
about.
He's got to flash away as soon as he sees Peanut.
Oh,
wait, nope.
The equalizer does come down. Peanut's in trouble. He is going to burn to death, and that is actually, you know, 1 for 1. I'll take that as a Koro fanboy.
Still feels bad, man, though.
Like, you're happy about it on the sense that you managed to trade 1 for 1, but you're not happy about it because he has not managed to CS basically over the course of a minute, and he's just going to keep falling further behind, and he had to burn his TP.
Yeah. I think that this is the kind of situation where the Jace is now so far ahead that he'll just eventually get your turret by nature of being Jace in this matchup.
That tower's already quite low as well, if we have a look at its health bar.
Ooh, yeah.
Yeah, he'll get it eventually. If it's first turret, then it's kind of worse for Smeb, or for Koro. But on the bottom side of the map, this is where Koro's going like, you know, I just died, and they didn't get anything back for it. All they got was some of Peanut's time, and usually the jungler's time, when that happens, is more of a... that flash was... Ooh.
Yeah, I mean, this is the kind of thing where if EDG was grabbing Dragon into Mountain Drake, you'd feel a little bit better about it. But here, it's just a free kill, and they don't lose anything for it. The one small upside is that the kills went onto Peanut as opposed to Smeb, but it's not... I mean, they're still happy about it as rocks. You can basically stop looking topside now. Jace is in a position to snowball entirely on his own. Peanut will probably stop coming up here, I would expect, and start trying to win the bot lane for him because it's actually not going in Rox's favor at all. We see that Deft is up almost 10 CS already.
And that's actually a really cool thing to note. You were talking about where the junglers, it's important to get your top laner ahead, but then you need to know when to stop and just let him use that lead and then go to the bottom side of the map and start creating advantages elsewhere, because that one will just kind of grow on itself. And you can see, like, ClearLove is now playing towards that top side because there's a lot of threat onto Koro that, you know, maybe he gets solo killed by the Jace. You have to get him some vision coverage just in case Peanut comes back up. And so it takes a lot of the enemy jungler's attention once you've already gotten your top laner ahead, so you can kind of go elsewhere and do whatever you want.
Yeah, Koro was looking for a potential opportunity there in the jungle like you're talking about, but wasn't able to find it. And Peanut once again. Oof. This is just...
I think this is more Peanut reacting to EDG's pressure. They know that they were just up there. They have a lot of vision control on that top side. You see no vision by Rox on the top side of the map, basically past their own jungle. So this is a little bit of a safety play where not only can you help guarantee the turret, but you guarantee that no collapse comes from EDG. Because Rise is also a very good roaming champion, and Olaf is, you know, he's just going to run down to Jace and beat him up.
Yeah, that realm walk, pretty handy. I do want to get to some questions on Twitter now that that tower has fallen down. Of course, that was the first blood for Rox, so ahead by quite a bit of gold. But first one comes in from Hoodwinker. How would the matchup look if Koro took Kennen instead of the Rumble into the Jace?
So the Kennen-Jace matchup is actually really interesting. Jace still wins it, in my opinion, and especially when he gets Hexdrinker first, it's still very Jace favored. But Kennen just has more teamfight impact and more impactful teleports on Kennen. So Jace, it's kind of harder to get those, and you have to get a split push advantage. Kennen can go even, but you kind of get shoved in because you lack a wave clear.
And the other big thing is that it's a lot harder to just try to go even, whereas we saw times where Koro was just ulting the wave to get a good recall off. Kennen doesn't really have that option available. He can't just clear a wave and run away. And I think if you're looking at Koro1 as a potential weakness and trying to set him up to be safe, Kennen is a lot more of a snowball-y pick in the sense that if it starts falling behind, it really becomes useless because it needs items to function, whereas Rumble can kind of, like we were saying, just shoot his ult out from far away, not have to, like, oh, I don't have my Zhonya's, I'm just going to pop in a team fight because I'm behind. He doesn't have that kind of problem the way Kennen does.
Yeah, as long as you get experience on Rumble, your base damages are so high, just adding some penetration onto your base damages is very effective. But yeah, Kennen, very different. Once you get Proto Belt, it does get a little bit better, but you kind of have to go Seeker's Arm Guard into Proto Belt. So it's a long time, and Jace can sometimes win the matchup by then.
Right,
Yeah.
I mean, if you were just substituting Kennen into the Rumble position here, even though that's not really a fair thing to do, because it changes the whole game, but if you just were Kennen from this position, you'd be a lot more upset than if you were Rumble.
Yeah,
well,
very true.
Good news for Koro there. I do actually want to bring another question up here as well, because Tomato comes in with a very interesting one saying, do you think it's a coincidence that both of the meta top laners at the moment are non-mana users?
I think it's not too surprising. The fact that you can't afford to put like a heavy, like a Cassio in top lane generally is obviously...
I've seen it.
I've seen it too against TSM. But generally, you just can't afford to put high mana users in the top lane.
Oh, wow. Scout is actually looking for a Rune Prison. He's going to go down there, looking to lock up Peanut. He takes a fair bit of damage. Good Stranglethorns. And there's the equalizer. Nicely placed there from Koro. Didn't use the flash, was thinking about it. It doesn't look like EDG can get much at the back of that free dragon.
Shock blast from Jace to disincentivize any kind of dive or chase coming through. Rox did a good job disengaging after that. Their comp's pretty good for that. The Zyra ult being able to slow anyone running after them. And, you know, they get the dragon get out, and they're pretty happy with it.
Yep, and then they get TP advantage for Smeb, too. So, just another thing to add on there.
Luckily for EDG, Jace is not that kind of, oh my god, there's a war behind me! But it's still really hard to force a play on the bot side now if you're thinking, oh, well, let's go down and fight Rox's bot lane. Now you have to worry about a TP coming in. So it just limits the options that EDG has, though it doesn't necessarily give a ton more to Rox.
Yeah, and that's what I was saying before. Like, the Jace teleports are not very impactful. Like, Kennen Rumble, definitely way more impactful or have the potential to be. A Jace, yeah, not so much.
No, not the thing that you're looking for. However, we'll see what Smeb can do. Of course, has always been a linchpin for his team and certainly has been at Worlds. Oh, the cheeky super deep pink ward. Love it. Towards the top side of the map there for Rox. Yeah, that one.
It's going to
Sneaky
TP there.
Devil.
End up behind him.
There's
and
the
forward.
super sick flank opportunity for Smeb.
So we're talking about that TP Jace. That's not going to happen, guys.
Yeah.
Damn it.
He'll use it at some point.
What we should have done is sold it as like super impactful.
I need you guys to keep your eye on that pink ward because at some point,
Smeb's going to be going for it.
Well, they actually do that a lot with things like Kennen. Like, Rox set up Smeb's teleport locations quite frequently. Like, it's always those deeper wards. It's quite great to watch. If you go back and watch a lot of their LCK games, it's like, man, Smeb got a beautiful teleport off. It's like, when was that ward placed? Who placed it? Who helped him out there? Who got that deep vision? And a lot of times it's Gorilla, sometimes Peanut, but Koro can also do it when he's holding on to his ward in the mid lane. But that pink ward is, that's probably, who placed that? Is that Peanut?
I think it was probably Peanut.
We can go check.
He's going to delve back.
Just to
into the
touch on that
archives.
ward a little bit, that's a good ward to TP2. When
It's his
you're
own. He placed it. I missed that. I wasn't looking.
That's a good ward to TP2 on the red side as a top laner, because it can actually go between both the outer bottom turret and the inner bottom turret. So it's a really, really useful ward to have for the red side TP, but not as great for the blue side. So it's not a terrible ward for TPing to, but it's a little harder to if you know you're on the top side.
If they want to dive mid, he can TP there and then just go around. He just replaced it. He replaced it. It was an absolutely useless ward.
Now they'll never know that they knew exactly what was going on and they can use it in game number 2. That's the level of mind game.
Holy.
That Smeb just bust out, boys.
It's actually interesting that he replaced it. It just wasn't providing the same amount of vision or the vision that he wanted at the time.
Yeah, I think he's concerned about getting looped around on from behind. He's not as worried about a brute force gank coming in from in front of him as much as he is about someone coming from behind. He wants to push up. As you see, there's a lot of more attention on the bot side of the map. He's going to be alone, so he wants that ward to cover those kinds of paths. And I'm a little surprised the Aurelion Sol hasn't done anything this game. Basically been stuck mid. He's out of lane now, looking for a play bottom, but this is the first one. Smeb's in a TP position, waiting for an opportunity to join this potential dive.
They warding in the middle? No.
Actually, he's not going to be able to get much done.
Yep.
Wave cleared out.
Cruising through.
Yeah, absolutely fine. Smeb going to head back towards the top side of the map, catch that wave that was building. And Koro now with his teleport just about to be off cooldown. And Leandri's Torment in his back pocket. I mean, that is going to be a pretty big deal equalizer if he manages to land it in the right spot. And that last one that we saw from Koro shows that his eye was certainly in. The team fighting skill is one that he hasn't lost. Like riding a bike, Zyrene and Mark. That's what it's about.
You're good at team fighting?
Absolutely.
Speaking from experience?
No, I'm good at riding a bike.
Okay. That was actually pretty good by Rox. I mean, even though they didn't get anything out of it, that's the kind of stuff you like seeing out of a team, where they're not just sitting on their TP advantage, getting nothing done or getting controlled. That play easily could have broke out in their favor if EDG wasn't on their way down to cover it. So I actually really am happy to see that out of the Rox, that they are proactive, even if the play doesn't come out, that they're constantly looking for them. And we see the dive attempt.
Speaking of the play, there's the flash out from Koro. Just going to clear out the wave with the equalizer. Probably could have tried to go for some sort of kill, but no. The dive's going to come in. Smeb easily picks that one up with the help of Koro.
Yep. 2, possibly 3-man dive if Peanut were able to get there. And what's the rest of the team doing? Having their back timers. And Karma's roaming around trying to get wards. They don't get anything off of that.
This is one of the powers of Aurelion Sol that we don't, I don't think, touch on enough, is not only was he roaming bottom to make a play and potentially do something there, but he gets elsewhere on the map so quickly. So he can reset, start roaming topside right after while the other team is resetting as well. He just kind of gets that tempo advantage very easily for himself and obviously for his team as well. If you force a play on the bot side, everyone recalls, and then he's, just running top with his E on the whole time. He's going to get to plays way before the rest of the team can react to it.
It's kind of broken.
Yeah. It's a little much. Definitely a little much.
And now has his Giant Spell completed as well, so going for that second item, Rylai's Crystal Scepter, not going for any sort of, I guess, Banshee's Veil or something like that we've been seeing as an item number 2.
Yeah. A lot of the times you'll see it second. I actually think that the Rylai's Crystal Scepter is even better. It's basically every item he builds is going to have HP on it. He just needs durability. Banshee's Veil you would think is really good in this because it's up against a double AP comp, and everybody else on the team has pretty much been like, all right, Hex Drinker. Even Peanut went Hex Drinker before he got his Aegis.
Oh my goodness, Gorilla going to flash away at the last second. Clearlove's looking for it, doesn't go for the last auto as the teleport's coming down from Koro. In comes Koro though as Peanut looking for it. There's the Voice of Light, but doesn't actually land onto Scout. He's running away. Koro does have the ultimate now just off cooldown. And there it is. Peanut going to take the majority of the damage, but it could have been in a better spot. Peanut flashes out. My God, the Rox Tigers are so incredibly low. And Deft at about half health wants to find the autos, but cannot get in there at all.
That was so close to being good for EDG. They started the playoff. Even though Rox was anticipating it, they weren't quite in position yet, so they got a ton of free damage on the Gorilla, but they couldn't quite finish him off. And then Rox was, of course, there to kind of counter the play with only 1 kill, as both teams obviously played that extremely well.
Yep, and now they're just trying to keep going through. Peanut.
Oh, Peanut looked for the cube, but didn't find it, as there's Clearlove. Oh, actually, the flash came out from Smeb. A lot of damage comes in. Rox still taking it, but they are going to be able to kill the jungler. Stun comes out, double kill for Kuro as Smeb He may actually fall to this turret. Q not going to land, and that tower shot was a little bit laggy.
Yep, it was so close to actually going off there. Very, very close. And now they're going to get another turret for it. And you can see just Rocks doing so much on this map. Every time they get the opportunity to do so, they're actually just pushing these mid-game team fights. It's been their specialty for a very long time.
Yeah, that was just stunning. And the use of aggro control, making sure that they went down as low as they could before getting out. I mean, some of it has to be luck, doesn't it?
No, actually, I think a lot of people are just very, very good at knowing the timing on the turret shots and things like that. You can see some crazy dives, especially you know, in Korea and China. They're really good at timing all this stuff. But I just want to point out how close this was to going well for EDG. They play all this super, super cleanly, and if they had gotten the kill onto Gorilla, they might have been able to actually turn this back. But he gets a couple of big roots off here. He gets one onto Koro that holds him in place to just get blown up, and they couldn't actually finish a kill off because they are just slightly behind in the game prior to this.
That equalizer, I actually think could have been better. You see where that ward is right there next to the wall, where Prey is? If you diagonal that up towards your turret, they have to get pinched in there. Like, those are the best equalizers, in my opinion, are the ones that pinch the person between the wall or have to walk all the way through the equalizer. One straight down doesn't really work too well, but it could have been a little bit better. That may have gotten a kill on Gorilla. But so far, nope.
Yeah, and Rock's just being able to push their advantage. They knew that they didn't have to back off, going not just for that one turret, but seeing if EDG is sticking around, which they were, and punishing for that.
And it's crazy too, like they all seem to be on the same page. Gorilla got chunked out, Prey got chunked out, and it's like, no, we're still moving forward. A lot of us still have HP. They aren't backing, which is very ballsy, but they still know the limits.
Yeah, and it's now 6,000 gold to lead. They got the inner turret on the bottom side of the map. We saw that one fall down, then followed it up immediately with that outer turret in the mid lane. Rocks are just snowballing this one out of control. 4-0 is that turret score that we were talking about. And at 22 minutes, 6K, that is huge. EDG had a decent start too. I mean, that bottom side was doing well. It was a lead for Deft, but now that has been closed by Prey. He's got his 2 items.
Yeah, they have some tools to be able to stop this. We see that Rocks is kind of starting up a 1-3-1. If any of them overextend just a little bit, maybe you can pick them off. Jace is a good target for that. He's probably the least tanky member that you're going to get, aside for obviously Gorilla, but he should be with someone at all times. So you're hoping maybe you can TP a Ryze in behind the Jace or something and get a kill and hopefully not give up a Baron during that time. But it's better than some team comps where they just don't have any playmaking potential from behind. EDG have some.
Well, I do have another Twitter question that we can go to. Alligator86 comes in with, should Rocks try to use Zyra's ult as an engage or a disengage tool against EDG's composition?
I think it's much better as a disengage. EDG are relatively short range. Like obviously Ezreal isn't, but Ryze is pretty short range, as well as the Rumble if he wants to do anything other than ultimate, and Olaf as well. So the Olaf can always run through it, but you can just put it behind him, and then the rest of the team can't join the fight. So it should usually be used for disengage, but if you're trying to pick somebody off in chain CC, of course you can drop it.
Yeah, I think the 2 best ways to use it are when the Olaf runs in with Ragnarok to try and get to your backline, you don't ulti him, you ulti the enemy and try to section them off or at least buy time for you to kill the Olaf without anybody helping on the enemy team. Or when Ryze ultis, you put it down on that, or you just throw the roots through and then you follow up with it. So the Ryze ulti against a Zyra is actually pretty painful.
Pretty good for baiting out a potential ultimate though.
Yeah, but usually you just send the E with the travel time and it'll root them right up and then you can ulti right after if you want to keep them there.
Yeah.
It's like a perfect ulti every time. I don't think they can even flash out in time at that point if it's right in the center and you rooted them.
Well, Koro going to get the first turret here for EDG on the bottom side of the map. Smeb looking to try and punish him for it.
Yep. This is going to be really rough. Zyra's coming up as well. Gorilla is not going to take the side route.
Yeah, Flash is going to come out, and that means Smeb is going to let Koro go just this once.
I think that was actually pretty good for EDG. Rocks had grouped up mid to try and siege that inner turret, but we're struggling to get much done, and they weren't. It didn't seem like their heart was in it, and EDG in the meantime just pushed out bot lane and got a turret. It's nice to be able to get a little bit of gold for your team. Obviously, it's not going to swing the game back, but any little bit helps.
Yeah, and the CS actually going back in favor of Scout in that mid lane as well, just because it was having that farm just shoved into him one after the other. Pretty handy stuff here. As far as CS is concerned, everything actually evens out. You know, Smeb's lead is about the same as Scout's lead. However, those turrets are going to be a big deal. The extra kills on the side of Rocks really demonstrating their prowess. And this was not when they were supposed to be strong. They haven't been all that powerful in the early game so far this tournament, but this game a very different story. A lot of it, I feel, has to do with Peanut, the fact that he snowballed Smeb quite early in this matchup, and the Lee Sin's looking very good.
Yeah, it was the winning top lane, the winning matchup for yourself. The winning bottom lane as well was actually causing some pressure. They didn't have as large of a lead as you would think, but Peanut coming top, this is kind of the new thing for junglers. Well, actually, it's been like kind of a rule for jungling, is don't camp your losing lane. You go to your winning lane to push it even further. But now on like 6:15 onward, it's like even more important. Get that first turret, get that gold, push through that winning lane. It's kind of like the dagger's already in, you just have to twist it, and the jungler is the one who does it.
Yeah. Well, they were able to take down that inner turret pretty easily here on the side of Rocks. Now able to free up a whole lot of that Baron space. You can see all of the vision that they have down already. And Zara adds a lot of damage to that Baron at the same time.
We were talking about how Rocks had a little bit of a weak early game during their group stage. The fact that you see them with a strong early game now, as well as having that explosive mid game, it shows why they were such favorites coming into this tournament, because I think this is the form we were expecting to see out of them, where they're very adaptable in where they go on the map and exactly how to pressure. That was one of the things I loved watching them, was that they always knew how to play their comp well.
Yeah.
So I think I'm personally excited to see them kind of more back on track, I guess.
Yeah. I don't like saying like sandbagging, but I think they were screwing around in those first few games. Like they're just laughing the entire time as they're feeding. It's like, oh, we still won though, boys. We still won. Like Peanut gets caught in the jungle. He gets like Koro killed against ANX, and they're just like they're laughing their asses off. It's like Kuro's probably like, screw you, Peanut. And it's like,
yeah.
Still, they're actually just, they seem to have a really good time. And then those last two games that they played, the tiebreaker as well, like they crushed. It was like, okay, stop messing around, guys. It's World Championships. Get back on track. And it hasn't stopped in this game.
Yeah, they always had the kind of free spirit about them when they had those ridiculous uniforms in 2015. All those crazy things. You could tell that
I miss them.
Yeah, they're always like a little looser of a team. So I could see definitely a situation where they come to America. They're excited to be in this tournament. They're having fun.
Put on a show.
And they're confident that they're not going to get knocked out in groups, even though it got a little close and they really had to try. I think you saw that once they realized, or not realized the severity of it, but were forced to have to win that game as opposed to, we have a couple games. I think you saw different Rocks come out.
Yeah, it's definitely speculation, but it didn't look like they were trying as hard as they could.
Well, Trisha Barrage not going to be able to take down that Mountain Drake, and that is going to be second Dragon falling for Rocks. EDG were able to sneak a cheeky Cloud Drake, but double Mountain Drake is a big deal. We saw it yesterday be quite effective in game number 1, SKT versus RNG. Because the Baron buff just tends to melt.
Yeah, it's also a siege composition. It's one of the best buffs to have for yourself, too.
Yeah, it's going to get smacked back. There's the flash traded. Voice of Light comes in, good slow as Smeb looking for the autos. Oh my goodness, the Super Soaker from Koro, but will he get snared as Smeb trapped on the equalizer, and he's going to fall down. EDG turn it right in its head.
Yep, a little bit of an overextension there by Rocks. They managed to force out a couple summoners, but they missed the initial shock blast that started out and a couple other things, and they just didn't have the patience to just back off afterwards. They wanted that kill.
They really did.
Nice knockback into Kuro, and then the chase down, but the Ghost is going to get him out with Karma as well. And here's where you need to turn around.
Yeah,
that flash in is the exact moment where they're like, oops, too far.
Yeah, a little bit too far. Luckily, it's not 2 members for Rocks, but EEG, happy that they get a turnaround there, and they get a lot of summoners for it, too.
Yeah, not much on the map, though. The Dragon was already taken down. Nothing for EDG to grab as we see Peanut soloing out Koro1 here.
Now he's just being mean.
Yep, cheeky kick flash comes in. As there's an Aurelion Soul due to be up here, but in comes Make. Oh my god, Scout! That Realm Warp was not the one that you wanted! That is a definite dangerous journey that he took towards the top side as Deft is trying to get some pot shots in.
I want to see that again. I want to see what happened on the opening of the Realm Warp.
We'll need to
through.
zoom in on the champions' faces as they make that decision.
Ah, God, they have no vision on the top side of the map. It's really not safe to try and collapse and protect Koro1 in such an extended position. They had no idea that the rest of Rocks was already collapsing in. So once that Rise ultimate finishes, it's like, oops, we're in the middle of the enemy team.
Yep. So he's going to ulti through with Mako. Doesn't get clear love. Run straight through. Oh, both against the wall. Here comes the E, into the ulti, into the knockup, into the E, into the stun again.
That was an incredible route from Gorilla as well.
Yeah, it's like, you run single file towards him, that's exactly what's going to happen. Root lasts so long that you don't have Merc Treads, you're going to get knocked up by the ultimate.
You're going to have a bad time.
You're going to have a bad time.
The nice thing about Zyra is you actually don't even need to be able to hit skill shots. Just throw some plants down there, and then
that's why I play her so often.
You got the slows down. You don't need to hit the root. Just drop your ult as well. It's a giant area.
Get a realize you never need to use your E button again. You slow people by pressing your Q.
I hate I hate Zyra. I'm actually really like the meta right now. Like I hate playing on live. It's like Nunu and Zyra. It's like get out of my games, guys. You're two of the most annoying champions in the game.
And incredibly easy to play.
Yeah, very true, very true. You just have to join them. You can't beat them.
I'm sorry for joining the balance team, guys. that was my fault.
Yeah, Zyra incredibly oppressive in lane. I mean, I've seen people play her top like full tank and she still wins the game because she's so annoying.
I did that once, yeah.
Yeah, it's just
awful.
annoying.
Def lands a few Qs onto Smeb. Does have his 3 items at least, and EDG's base still stands, but they've lost 6 of their turrets. And they've only managed to take 1. 11-4 now the kill score. 10,000 gold the lead and a Baron buff to boot on this Rocks Tigers team. Peanut looking for a way in. We'll see whether he can kick someone out as there's the equalizer. In fact, EDG want to find a fight, but it's just going to soften up Rocks and deter them from sieging any further.
Yeah, I don't like that. I feel like you need the equalizer to hit for damage. You're so far behind, you don't have the ability to win a team fight if you're blowing one of your key ultimates in a pokey fashion, because now they're just going to sit back in front of your turret, and you really don't have any damage threat now like you would have with the Rumble.
Yeah. It's also very difficult for this EDG team to actually set up a good equalizer. They don't really have any ways to keep people in place so that it comes down.
Another double stun. In goes Koro once again as Def able to get some decent damage off to the side.
Like, if you had equalizer there,
that would have been disgusting, yeah.
Like, Koro can't walk that far forward. Like, the reason he walks that far forward is because they don't have equalizer.
Right, he doesn't have to be scared of anything, but maybe a rise route is the most threatening thing.
Saw Deft actually standing to the side throughout that whole thing as well, actually able to get a fair bit of damage onto Rocks. Smeb needs to be trying to get a little bit more of this poke to try and soften EDG, get them out of the way.
Peanut once again pretending he's the top laner. Saw him start that other fight.
Reminds me of MLXG yesterday. Spent most of his time just farming outside lanes in the later stages of the game. But Rocks once again going to push through.
Ooh, the Super Galaxy!
Whoa, that's a big one as Def gets himself out of there. Peanut looks for the kick, but actually doesn't find it. He's going to get snared up. Fair bit of damage already taken as they're looking for the inhibitor. Arcane Shift goes across. Good equalizer from Koro. Oh no, not able to quite land it as he's going to get punished by Gorilla. Now 4 versus 5. Rocks are pushing into the base. Peanut is still just flirting with danger off to the back end as Def getting some pot shots once again. And Rocks just take the inhibitor and leave. This is so clean from this team.
Yeah, remember when I said that Rumble has one of the steepest mastery curves? It's because very effective ultimates completely change the fight, whereas ones that aren't effective, you actually use a lot of his power budget in these later game team fights. Like, I don't think it was actually that great of an ultimate there.
No, it didn't quite work. Thought Peanut might have actually died, you know?
Yeah, he kind of went for 2 things at once. He wanted to finish off Peanut and kind of box Koro in, but he didn't do either, where there was still a gap on the right side that some of the carries from Rocks were sitting in, and then obviously Peanut was able just to walk out of it. So that's one of the hard parts about Rumble is you always want that perfect ultimate that does everything. It zones, it does damage, and there he got neither.
Yeah, and he knew that Peanut had already used W, so yeah, you got to use a lot to get away, because once Aurelion Soul hits you once...
Oh, the Seraph's Embrace, can he get the... No, he can't.
I'm glad you cut it off.
I love this so much. One of my favorite calls is the one where Freak asks a question and then he's like, no, false.
Answers himself.
Answers himself with the false.
Yeah.
It's like, and he's going to live? False. He dies. It's like, all right.
I didn't have a chance to answer.
Well, he was certainly dead. That was a boot to the face.
I think just kind of looking back over this game, I think Koro actually did okay. I mean, he's obviously feeding when you look at the scores.
Yeah.
But obviously, he misplayed the early laning phase, I think, trying to get the push on and then failing to actually get it into turret or anything.
All right, so let's pretend I'm Reddit for a second.
Okay.
Hi, Reddit. How are you? Koro1 sucks. He's feeding all game. He's the reason they lose. What's the blame game?
I would say kind of. Because I mean, you saw that team fight. He's not, like, playing great. There's no way you can say, like, man, Koro, he almost carried this game or anything like that. But he was super disadvantaged where he's in the losing matchup. The other team has Aurelion Soul and the Lee Sin, and then they did put a coordinated effort into killing him while his team was making plays on the flip side of the map. So I think if you look at it from that perspective, it wasn't as bad as the initial scoreline might make you think. But then when you see some of his team fighting later, he's not hitting some of the critical ultimates. So that one's
actually pretty damn good.
Yeah, not too bad. Koro is going to die for it, though. and no one on the side of Brox is going to fall. True Shot Barrage hits a whole bunch of different people.
Just when we start complimenting him, he misses that Zanya's button.
Ah, yes.
Isn't there like a...
No, he must have just bought that in the Death Chamber.
He bought it in the Death Chamber? Are you certain?
No, I'm definitely sure that he already had it. I
Less
promise you.
than 10% of players actually use their activatable items in
you,
combat. Yeah. I had that
I think I've
conversation
recently
back-
seen that statistic.
It was back on a playtest team where we saw that. It was the whole Muramana conversation where it's like, why are you taking this away? Why are you taking away the activatable item of the Muramana? It's like, people just click it on, and
I'm
then
not going to lie to
they
you,
leave it on.
I never used it, really.
Yeah. And some people forgot to activate it, but it's like, you leave it on, and that's it. Or like, you start CSing, you have to like, turn it off. So now, we just solved it, we made it so that it's just much easier to use. You don't have to think about it. So yeah, you're welcome. Half of you who more than half of you who never even used it, but
we had a long conversation about that. And in the meantime, Rox actually won game 1
with
against
using
EDG.
their activatable items.
Yeah, using activatable items. EDG unfortunately not going to use as many of them. There was one question that we had on Twitter that was so important to me, stuck out in my mind so much, that I feel like we should read out before game number 2. And that is, what the heck does beat Jace in lane? And it came in from Jesse.
It doesn't lose to really anything unless you start looking at really off-meta picks. But that's why people are playing it so much and why you see such an emphasis on it, even though you might think, oh, it's losing a bunch of games when you see some NA teams play it. The reality is it doesn't lose any matchups, really, and it has great scaling throughout the game, even though it's a lane bully. And the biggest problem with this with it is that it compromises your comp a little bit. And if you're able to play around that, it's a monstrous pick. So you kind of have to deal with it either through taking that Poppy, which was banned intelligently by Rox, and just trying to wait out the game. And if the Poppy gets ahead, then you're not scared of the Jace anymore. Or you pick another carry matchup that tries to go even and then impacts the game as well.
Yeah. And like you said, there's some off-meta picks. Like if you're picking something, I think Aurelia's okay, but laning phase, you still get destroyed. So it's like he has the tools to win almost any matchup pre-6. And usually you'll see professional Jaces do that and push the advantage.
So is it time to bring out something like Renekton or Darius? You know, the classic 1v1 me bro champions?
No, definitely not. I think what you have to look at is maybe a Jace ban, unless you think Koro1 can play it, because I think otherwise Rox just keeps running the Jace pick. And you can try and limit some other things too, like the Aurelion Soul. Some picks are going to snowball that topside matchup, but I don't think you can trust Koro to go through it.
Luckily, EDG for next game for them, they get side selection. It's most likely blue, because I feel like there's a lot of kind of mandatory red side bans like the Nidalee. The Syndra should also be there, but we're seeing a lot of blue side Syndra bans. A little confusing, but still.
Well, we'll see how it works. But up next, we'll welcome Matt to the cast for a jungle-focused look at game number 2. And until then, we'll send you back to the mainstream for Dash and the Analyst Desk live in Chicago.
Yeah, I mean, it's a really terrible situation for Koro in the first place because he's picking against the Jace. And he could have gone for a tank in some sort, but no, Poppy is going. You can't really go Maokai up there. You can't really go Echo against Jace either. There's really nothing he can pick in this situation that can beat the Jace against Smeb. So he goes for the team fighting pick and is like, I'm going to try and survive. You guys go bot lane, and then later we join together. But that just gave such an easy opening for Rox to camp a lane.
But to his credit, I mean, double flash burnt first time. He comes back second time, gets a return kill. He probably played that laning phase as best as you can when they're willing to throw that many resources at you. Then his decision-making got a little bit shaky as the ganks kept coming. The first two were actually played very well, and then he started flashing a little bit trigger happy, and it's just a slippery slope.
Well, it's also incredibly difficult to play the laning phase in the side lanes when you're dealing with Aurelion Soul. Just give Aurelion Soul to Kuro. Don't bother about laning. Just never be there. Push and roam, push, roam. And if he can roam to the top side, it's the implication that he's going to top that makes him have to back off. I mean, you know that Aurelion Soul can roam at level 1. We saw CLG do it to Rox. I'm sure they picked this up themselves, especially with the likes of maybe a Caitlyn. And you kind of have to give him some credit, although I think that the pick might have been a little bit difficult, maybe a Gnar.
Again, problem is the fact that you give away Jace, you don't have a pick against it, so that now means for next game, if you don't have an answer, you got to ban the Jace, and then suddenly you got to remove some of the jungle bans maybe, or you got to remove at least the Jhin ban. But then you also look at Aurelion Soul, which I think is the perfect pick for Rox Tigers in the mid lane, because it's not about their mid lane, it's about the side lanes. Aurelion Soul is all about going to side lanes and snowballing side lanes. So you got two picks I'm looking at. Jace, who can snowball so hard for Smeb in top in a skill matchup, and then Aurelion Soul that can impact all the lanes. Both of these picks have insane high value for Rox Tigers and have to be removed.
Yeah, game one was evidence to me that Champ Select is going to be a very tough puzzle for EDG to crack. But now I want to kind of identify the play styles with which each of these teams approach the game with our first replay here. Cross map, we've got Rox focusing in on the top lane while EDG goes by.
So we figured that Rox would be focusing the top side. This is a nice little flash from Smeb on top of another flash from Peanut. But on the reverse side, we're going to see EDG going for it, but this is going to be the world's worst Lumberjack. I don't know what Clearlove is doing. He pretty much lost this play for EDG.
Yeah, and you know, this in the end nearly was a 3-for-1 still with EDG going down. Mako actually gives dangerous game over to Koro at the back end of this play, and it means they will be able to do it. Sure, Def missed ulti and a couple of Qs here, but realistically, this is going to be a theme of the game. EDG under pressure, not mechanically executing, and Rox Tigers stepping up and getting away on slithers of health and turning that into big advantages.
It just looks like the rigged carnival for all the abilities that kept getting missed. I'm not sure what EDG was doing. You know, we know this team as being one that can play in the best of fives, but for opening up like this, I'm a little bit worried.
Exactly. I mean, yeah, you can be nervous for your first game, but Rox Tigers, they were able to execute when it mattered, and that's a problem because we look at the pick and ban phase and say that's going to be in favor of Rox Tigers due to flexibility. We look at the early game and say, okay, that's probably also a bit strong for Rox Tigers because of the Smeb on top side. If you can't mechanically then execute when you actually get a chance to pick up kills, then there's no way you're going to win this game. And that is such a big problem, something we don't normally see when you look at top 8 teams in the world.
And let's go ahead and take a look at an Ace replay that shows just how good Rox can be. Party in the bot lane. Everyone's invited, but that doesn't mean everyone's going to have fun.
Let's look at Clearlove.
And one more time, Clearlove actually gets unlocked here, and the CC's burnt early, so he should be able to chase him down. Goes looking for an axe, stumbles over his own shoelaces.
Yeah, like, sadly for him, he didn't have vision actually in that bottom side bush, so he couldn't hit the Zyra with auto attacks until he was inside the bush. And then it was too late, he ran away. And now Koro is like, hey, I've done my job after this ulti. Let me just go back in for some reason. My entire team is low and gone, and I'm just gonna walk in and die.
And the biggest thing around this play is when you watch EDG play domestically, all of the playmaking comes from the tank jungler and the tank support. They play Braum, they play Alistar, they play Rek'Sai, they play Gragas. When they are not the two champions that are hitting go, Mako on a very reactionary support, you can see how confused and lost this team looks in team fights.
And then you try and make up for a loss, really. You try and stay around and see maybe we can catch a guy. If someone stays to push a tower alone. Problem is, the guy wasn't alone. That's just beautiful in the end also. Smeb stays alive, doesn't get the kill. But like, yeah, it's one of these problems we see from teams when they kind of panic. Like, oh, we just lost that play. Let's try and stay and see if we can get something in return. And that often means you just lose even more like they did here.
Well, that's what I felt like how EDG was playing, very reactive to what Rox was trying to do. We know that they were trying to go for the top side focus, and one of the key ways to play in League is that you want to have vision in the side that you want to be making plays. And we know that EDG wanted to focus onto the bottom side, but it looks like it was just a reaction to the top side, and that just is evident with the vision. All the vision from EDG was just defensive for Koro in the top side, and that doesn't allow you to make anything happen on the map. Had the vision been bottom side, we might have seen more teleports from the Rise and focusing more of that lane.
And that's what we want to see, because we expect top lane to go down 50 CS and 2 kills. That's fine. Koro still did his job. It's the rest of the members of EDG that were so disappointing in this game.
I want to see EDG on blue side. I don't want to see Nidalee being banned because I actually think they have to be able to first pick it. Instead, you remove Elise, you remove Aurelion Sol and Jace, and you remove some of these strong soul laners. I know Clearlove hasn't always been the greatest Nidalee, but I think you have to trust in him right now. Or give him Elise first pick, one of the two.
I mean, if Rek'Sai's not going to be there, I would rather see maybe even the likes of a Zac. He has such a massive champion pool. Maybe that champion is there.
You gotta get rid of one of the two
shots.
junglers.
Remove the skill shots there. I want to see him on something that's easier.
All right, but let me ask you this. We saw both teams utilize the play styles that we expected coming in. We had Smeb with a 31 CSD at 15, whereas we had Deft dealing 46% of his team's damage in this game. Clearly, that did not work for EDG. I mean, you've already mentioned it. EDG has selected blue side. They will be going to that side. Aside from champions, like, what can they change within the game to help themselves come up with a victory?
I was just going to go with they need a bigger gun. I'm sick of seeing Ezreal like get a Jinx or a Twitch in there. If you're going to do that much damage, actually just play Protect the Def comp. I mean, we've seen them already run Karma mid lane. Just get full supportive, because I think that that is a way that maybe you sneak a game. I have no idea anymore. That was just really poorly executed.
A couple ideas there for EDG, but Rox Tigers out to a nice lead here, 1-0. When we return, Rox Tigers and Edward Gaming are back in action for game 2.
똥이 마려워 똥이 마려워 똥이 마려워
Knockback, here's the ward hop in, the kick as well, lands the Sonic Wave, that's first blood in for Peanut. Meanwhile, Prey has to do just that, he's running into house
얘들아, 뺄 수 있어?
Koro able to get away, not burning any summoners, and here's the rest of Edward Gaming. Smeb has teleport, and here's the re-engage. 2 members already picked off, make that 3. Koro doesn't even need to snipe, a double kill for Koro. Rocks Tigers convincingly take down game 1.
Dare to be different. Revel in the impossible. Introducing a little anarchy, disrupting the natural order. Because a hero lies in all of us. Nothing is beyond your reach. Claim your victory and go forth to conquer new worlds.